October 13th, 2021. We are holding this as a Zoom meeting due to the ongoing pandemic. So the Zoom link is at the top of the agenda, or there's also an audio call-in number and the meeting ID associated with the meeting as well. So with that, I'd like to confirm that we do have a quorum. So Lisa, please.
Brinkmeyer. Broom.
Here.
Justin.
Here.
Ratcliffe.
Here.
Sale.
Here.
Schultz.
Present.
Williams.
Present.
And I believe, Don, are you on?
Yeah, I'm on. I didn't hit the button.
Okay, thank you.
What's this for?
All right.
I mean, are these all members?
Lisa, can you mute the lines, please? Do have a lot of folks on, so that's good. Thank you. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please find a flag. Do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Item 4 is public appearances. Public's opportunity to speak on any subject that is not a specific agenda item. I do know that we have a number of folks that would like to speak on one particular item. We do have those queued up. So if you haven't filled out a form regarding this application for the substation and have a different item you'd like to bring up, please do so. Share your name, your address, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes. I will pause and again, find your unmute button if you have a subject that's not a specific agenda item.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
This is Kevin Gorton. I live right next door to the proposed lot for this substation.
Yeah, Kevin, can you hold your, I'm gonna queue up comments for the substation when we get to that particular item in the agenda, unless you have a different item you want to cover.
Oh, no, we're good.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
I was making sure you could hear me.
We got you. All right, if there are no other public comments, we'll move right on to the next item on the agenda. Item 5 is discuss and consider the meeting minutes from our Plan Commission held on September 16th. Any comments, questions, edits from commission members?
I'll move to approve.
All right, thanks, Melissa. Is there a second?
Second.
I think Fred was in there, I think. At least I'll sort that out. It's been motioned second. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Item 6 is to discuss and consider the application for a site plan approval from Alliant Energy / Wisconsin Power and Light to construct an electrical substation at 240 Bonnie Road. What I think we'll do is perhaps we'll address some questions. We'll let the applicant start off, and that may cover that. And then we'll get into the number of staff and then into all the folks that want to speak on this. And basically I'll rattle through the forms I have, and then if we miss anybody, we can catch those up on the end, if everybody's good with that. All right, I saw a couple representatives from Alliant. You guys have some further adjustments to the site plan? Is a representative from Alliant on?
Okay, this is Tom Erstead, Alliant Energy Real Estate. Can you hear me?
Yes, Tom, we can.
Okay. Can I ask if my partner Greg Artery is online?
I saw him earlier on the Zoom.
Okay.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, good, good. Um, well, yes, we're here again. We responded to requests from the previous Plan Commission meeting, provided documents, information, and I guess if you want to just, go through those, we can discuss each and every one to whatever degree it needs to be discussed and answer questions.
I know that Aaron put together a memo kind of walking through those pieces. Aaron, do you want to provide that summary, and then we'll let Greg and Tom weigh in accordingly? I think that's the best foot forward here.
Sure. If I don't have something quite correct, Greg, please jump in and correct me. But as far as the changes from the previous site plan, the applicants moved the stormwater pond. It was on the east or back side of the property, kind of behind the substation. It's now on the west or front side of the property, so in front of the substation if you're standing at the street. So in the current plan, the front fence is about 150 feet from the sidewalk, whereas previously it was about 70 feet away from the sidewalk in the previous version. They've provided additional landscaping details, including a cluster of 9 evergreen trees at the northwest corner of the property, with the intent of providing visual buffering. With a couple of additional evergreen trees more central along the street edge. They're also proposing prairie grass around the north, east, and south sides of the fence. Then they did provide the required photometric study showing a fairly minimal amount of site lighting. And that does appear to align with our ordinances. So Tom or Greg, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to cover.
Well, this is Tom Erstead, Land Real Estate. We provided more information on fencing height, sound, American Transmission Company, route options, in pictures, etc., which were also items that were additional information requested.
Yes, that's correct. That should all be in the packet.
Correct.
All right, we'll move on. Any initial questions from commission members regarding the information provided?
Yeah, I guess, John, sorry, I'm the route lines of the transmission, is that attachment, and is that Y81 Bonnie Road alignment options? Is it that PDF?
That's correct.
For whatever reason, it's not opening. I'm having troubles. Okay, I think
It crashed my PDF program every time I tried to open it.
Yeah, the red dots flow through pretty quick, and then
I don't know if they could share that, if someone from Alliant could share that.
It actually just opened for me, but it crashes out too. These aren't okay.
There are a lot of people in the meeting.
Yeah. How I guess around the transmission lines, how close are you to picking one of these routes?
The ATC has just kicked off their project and developed those 3 routes. They have not contacted any landowners at this point. They're still going through their due diligence with developing this plan of those 3 routes. I guess they're looking at what would be, they have their preferred route, which is along I think it's Clark Road, but whether it's north or south, they haven't refined it any more than that.
And Greg, and all those options, none of them were buried, right?
Correct.
Yep. And the village in that both in the subdivision this is backing up to, as well as that industrial park, all the lines are buried. Correct? We talked a little bit about this at last plan commission. I was a little surprised we didn't see that particular option shown in the packet provided. So
Direct
this-
bury, John? You mean direct bury to the transmission?
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we asked about that last time. In fact, I made the point that we're paying Alliant right now to bury lines in the village with projects we've got ongoing. So I'd like to see that option as well. And I think a number of people on the Zoom asked that question in their comments, whether emails or they'll share it later, I'm sure. So that was one item. I didn't notice any other screening options. We still have a chain link fence in here with trees. There was no suggestion of any type of solid barrier that would block it better. I know other substations in the area, one in Madison for sure, in Mount Road, in Sun Prairie, there are such features. I would hope that Alliant would consider that investment in this substation if you truly want to place it there. And I'd like to see that option as well. And I'll turn it over to commission members because I don't want to take all my time here.
I brought up the map, so I'll just chime in. I do like the route through Clark Street. It is going to be a little more I believe that's 115,000 volt transmission line. Is that correct? Tom?
I think, Greg, do you know, is it 69 or 138?
I was
I think
muted, sorry. It's 69.
69 kV.
Yeah, so even at 69, it's going to be a little more difficult to direct bury. It's certainly possible. 115 has got its issues too. So that's significantly better than down, that main road there. So that's nice. Yeah, the screening and all that other stuff. I think, John, you picked up on key points for me. Thanks.
I guess I echo John's points too about solid screening. This is probably the absolute worst lot in the business park to place this. It would have been nice if we would have known this, I guess, several years previous, where we could have put it in a different lot that would have been up against the railroad tracks or somewhere where it would not have impacted the residential. I know the building across the street was a previous village president's building, and he specifically picked that lot so he could make sure that the the residential housing behind them, that he would screen everything properly and all that. And yeah, I'm just not crazy about the placement of this.
Don, that's a good point. As I'm looking at the map and reading the emails, and going to welcome the comments that are to come from our neighbors. Alliant Energy. I mean, one of the questions I asked in the last meeting is the cause, right? And they talked about the donut, and I think they really need to go into a little bit more detail with our neighbors about why is this important in conversations of growth to the north and to the east and these different places, and the Commerce Park is growing and all this other stuff. And a lot of this stuff has been planned, and there's a donut, and they need to defend not having rolling blackout type of conversations. But in looking at this map, John, has staff looked at? We have skin in this game. Have we looked at giving up Bonnie Road for this and putting it inside the building? We could bring it a couple of parcels down if we put it on our property, the village property. That's a storage building.
Right.
And we
Get ugly. It's a horrible place, and you're complicit. You should be.
We'll get to public comments in a second, so please be patient. I don't think, I know that staff hasn't looked at that. It's an actual building. Alliant hasn't inquired about that either. They've inquired about this particular spot, which is a private property, a private parcel. So, yeah, I don't know. And I don't know if, Greg, are there other spots that Alliant looked at? I mean, I think that's really the question I think Alex is getting to.
Yes,
Within this donut.
Well, so ideally, where we would have liked to have sited the sub would have been more toward the center of town. And as we looked at several different parcels, um, really it was the impact on the community would have been greater from a transmission line extension standpoint, and really what we would need to do to accommodate those sites. So this location was suggested. And then we did our due diligence of looking at this and could we ultimately make this site work with what we needed. As I said, ideally, squarely at Main Street and Cottage Grove Road would have been the ideal spot. Um, and then as we go further west from there, would have been would have worked, but then it gets much more into residential locations and with a bigger impact. And really, we were trying to limit that.
And just a clarification, Alex asked about the donut. You want to explain that for everyone? You got
Sure.
Yes, please.
We have a substation to the north, Gaston Road, that's just off 94. We have a substation on the far south end along County Inn, our Cottage Grove. And really, in between those two is really kind of the hole in our system. So, as we say, the hole in the donut, that's where we are most at risk because we're trying to tie our feeders between those two substations. And the load that is, as Cottage Grove has continued to grow, the load really in the center of town, as well as just the overall load growth, is making it difficult to maintain the reliability that we're shooting for. So we need another substation for overall support in this area. And the further that we get away from our ideal spot, the less it works. So the site that is selected is not our number one site. As I said, more toward the center of town would work a lot better. But when we could route all the feeders, we could make this site work at an acceptable level.
And just to clarify, the two particular substations that are in existence now cannot be expanded to address this?
No, they can't. We would still, because what it really is the physical distance and where the load is at. So
Okay.
yes, we could have more capacity at those stations, but then we would need really probably quadruple the amount of lines coming through town to try to connect in. And that creates a different set of problems. So that was what we were trying to really limit. And really, that doesn't work as well, and quite frankly.
Okay. Any other?
John, if I could make a quick
Go ahead,
comment,
Rick.
just to sort of set the stage for future commission discussion or debate. I think it's important to remember that with this particular site, the zoning does allow the utility permitted by right. So really since it's just a site plan approval, the plan commission and the village, assuming it gets to that, the village board, assuming it gets to that point, the scope of its authority to review is fairly limited. The village ordinance for the site plan approval says that when you're reviewing the application, the plan commission is supposed to consider whether or not all standards of the zoning ordinance or all ordinances are satisfied by the plan, public health and safety is not endangered, adequate public facilities and utilities are provided for the site, there's adequate control of stormwater and erosion, appropriate traffic control and parking are provided, appropriate landscaping and open spaces are provided, and the appearance of structures maintains a consistency of design with other architecture within the type of zoning district. So when a site plan really can't be used to regulate, what appropriate uses go on a property, just because the zoning ordinance has already said that this is an allowable use of the property. So we just want to sort of set the stage for future discussion to make sure that we're all on the same page for what the site plan approval can be, what you can consider for the site plan approval going forward.
All right, thanks, Rick, for the legalese. Any other comments from commission members? Otherwise, we've got a lot of folks on the line. I will start rattling down those requests to speak.
Alex, which site were you talking about as an alternate in the village, in the business park?
Taking our storage location,
Okay.
our old public works building, and just the reason for that is it pulls it away from residential.
Yes.
That's what I was looking at, and to John's point earlier about aesthetics and solid fence or not solid fence. I mean, there's cost to all that stuff. It's not my project, and as Rick really steers us from the legalese, what if it's site plan, right? But from I think it's maybe more for village board to debate that type of issue as they negotiate space. But I was I think Alliant Energy did what any reasonable developer would do, and it's look for open space first, not knowing what other buildings are available to be raised or whatever. And I'm just trying to, as an idea, to pull it away from the residential housing. So.
And the other lots that are vacant to the south, those are for previous expansion or future expansion of village buildings, or those are just for sale by others?
Right now, those 2 lots are owned by the village.
Okay. I mean, that would be a possibility too. We would get it closer to the transmission line and get it away from the residential.
Good point. Good point, Don. Any other comments for commission members? Otherwise, I've got a few folks I know that want to speak, so we can open up that portion of this. All right, with that, forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Some of the writing on some of these forms that were scanned is like my writing and a bit of a challenge. So, and if for whatever reason we missed someone, we'll catch you at the end and give you opportunity to that. I ask everybody to please be respectful, share your name, your address, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes, because literally we've got about 30, 40 people to talk. So with that, start at the top. Amy True at 302 Bonnie Road, resident, and would like to speak. Amy, I think I saw you on.
Yep, I'm here.
All right.
Hello, my name is Amy True, and I live at 302 Bonnie Road with my husband and 2 children. We oppose this electrical substation on our street. Our daughter was diagnosed with brain cancer 7 years ago. Since then, she's had 2 brain surgeries, 6 weeks of daily radiation to her brain, months and months of physical therapy, and more MRIs than I can count. The pain of watching our child endure these so-called treatments is overwhelming and debilitating, not even to comment on the pain that has caused my child. I'm not here to debate the research about anything, but I want to highlight some of the village's propaganda about the safety of a substation right next to my home. In your own propaganda, quote, it says, there is little evidence that magnetic fields cause childhood leukemia, and there is inadequate evidence that magnetic fields cause other cancers in children. Studies of adults' magnetic fields exposure from power lines shows little evidence of association with leukemia, brain tumor, and brain cancer. Little evidence. That doesn't mean there's no evidence. It means there is evidence that magnetic fields cause leukemia And if you notice in the first sentence, they say cause childhood leukemia. That means there's a causal relationship. In the second one, it's little evidence associated with leukemia. So in children, there is a causal relationship. This is my neighborhood. This is my community. These are my children. As a mother and a child who has lived through childhood cancer, a mother of a child who's lived through childhood cancer, I know that even a weak association is too great of risk. Please find a new spot for the substation. I promise you that even if even one child in this neighborhood develops cancer, your guilt and your feelings of voting yes to facilitate this will be overwhelming and debilitating. Please vote no for the Bonnie Road substation. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. All right. Next, we just got an email from Dean Snero. He and his wife Kara moved to 2020 Vista Drive in May of 2009. They are against the proposed station. It goes on for a bit for that. It says, and then finalizes as to please preserve our beautiful, peaceful, and family-friendly area. And thank you. So we'll keep that in file and move on to those that potentially would like to speak. This was a request to speak from Carrie and Dean Snero. So there they are. They sent the email, and so you can actually. So that was good. That
I mean, I did go on at length really in regards to the aesthetics of the neighborhood and how we moved to this area despite a pretty far commute that I had way out in Middleton. We chose this area, I mean, because it's beautiful, the forest and the conservancy, and obviously the sight lines are beautiful. And so my concern certainly definitely not as serious as our last speaker, but certainly as far as the neighborhood and just the aesthetic and how it presents itself to people, walking their dogs around around this block, which I've done a million times since I've been here. And just the thought of this, 55 plus decibel humming station to be 100 feet off the sidewalks, and these high power cables breaking the sight line that we have over the trees. Really, it's upsetting to me and my family as we play. My kids have grown up playing in the forest right there, and now it's going to be this ugly barbed wire fence. And there's just a lot of these things that everybody I've talked to going around, the biggest question they have, flavored with a lot of invectives, as I mentioned in the letter, is why? Why here? Brings less than zero property value to us in this area. Our property values most likely would drop. For what, to power all the new development on the north side? That's and again, on that particular point, it's conjecture, but that's what everybody that I've talked to is concerned with, is what do we get out of this besides a horrible eyesore? That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dean. Next, just a quick note from Julie Osborne. She lives at 417 Bonnie. Been here 22 years, love the neighborhood. Shocked to hear the possible plan for putting an electric substation at the end of our street. While increasing local power grid is needed, I do not agree the spot being considered on Bonnie Road is in the right location. Please reconsider placing this at a different and more remote location, not right on top of our homes. That's from Julie. Next up is Patricia Stenrid and John Stenrid at 412 Bonnie Road. We want to voice our opposition for the proposed substation. They are village residents, did not wish to speak, and again, against the substation. Next is is an email. It was to our clerk. Wanted to take a minute to voice the community concern regarding the proposed Alliant Energy substation for decades in Cottage. This got cut off. For decades in Cottage Grove, a small community with equally small, less dense population, many surrounding communities. Over the past couple of years, the community has added not just one, but 4 large apartment complex, where previously only one was rooted in Cottage Grove. While we can understand that the growing millennial population prefers apartment living versus home ownership, the residents of Cottage Grove that pay for individual property taxes are seeing an exorbitant increase in compensating the load of community on our schools to support the dense population of these housed in these buildings. While many families gladly pay their support necessary to fund quality schools for our children, is really viable to expect that people seeing an increase in property taxes to contend with a large, loud, and unsightly power station in their backyards. I truly believe this is too much for a small community to bear. I would ask that the board consider keeping the quality and appealing look of our community with what is expected to pay of taxes. Thank you for your time. And this is from Nicole Schuneman. There is no address. We can look that up. Next up, Cheryl Thurman at 433 Clearbrook Terrace in Cottage Grove. Cheryl wishes to speak, and Cheryl, are you on?
I am on. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, as many of the other people, my name is Cheryl Thorman. I'm at 433 Clearbrook Terrace in Cottage Grove. We've lived here about 16, 17 years now. And I'm adamantly opposed to Alliant Energy building this electrical substation in the business park on the corner of Bonnie Road and Progress Drive. I mean, the substation with these huge humming transformers, towers, overhead high voltage lines should never be allowed in that space. There's just no reason. You know, what I'm hearing when I just hear these comments before, it's money, it's legal ease, we can, so we're just going to do it. It just seems so disrespectful to the residents who live here. Just listening to that is just, wow. There's other places that can be looked at. It's too close to a residential area, and it's really beyond. You know, you may have this legal ease where you can justify anything you want. You know, I've worked with legal. I know just how that goes. It's all interpretation. And, you know, what I'm hearing is this is just too close to a residential area, and it's beyond the expectation of light industrial. When people moved here, it was light industrial, and something like this was never envisioned. The proposal as it stands now should be rejected. My ask to the commission and the village is to reject the current proposal and instead require one that moves the substation further away from the residential area and requires underground utilities. You know, I'm still having a hard time understanding why that wasn't. What I've researched and heard from other people is cost. So right there, just an uncaring big company, our cost is the bottom line. That really comes to it. I think we really need to look at what the residents need, the people here. You know, there's other areas, there's a lot of rural area around here that can be looked at. All you have to do is go 1 mile out of town and you're all in rural area. There's even another in the park that you're talking about on the other side of the police station. I'm not sure if that's the east. It's closer to the main street. Even an area there further away from the residential area. So I guess I would really ask that we vote no on this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Cheryl. Next, we have, looks like Josh and Michelle Denies at 453 Bonnie Road. I can't read the writing there. Didn't wish to speak very much against, since the comment here is, why would we want this? Wires are all underground. Why would you allow this? it's not even for us. So next we have another one from Nancy Keith at 252 Bonnie Road. Wishes to speak. Nancy, are you on?
I am.
All right.
I'm at 252 Bonnie Road. I'm one lot away from the proposed substation. I work a lot with sound levels in my professional job, and 55 decibels to honestly 65, 70 decibels is what we're really talking about. Consistent hum is much more significant than what the literature that's been disseminated really demonstrates. If you imagine sitting with a running air conditioner condenser sitting next to you 24/7, that's what you're going to listen to. So if you are within, what did we say, 150, 200 feet of that, trying to enjoy your porch on your green space, which is a natural depression in the earth, you're going to get a nice echoey hum as you try to enjoy your backyards. And that's quite a few of us who are going to be in that situation. I completely recognize that is minor compared to health concerns that people have expressed. It might even be considered minor compared to property value damage that'll be done if this goes through, but it's going to be beyond an annoyance. It is going to severely damage quality of life for people to be able to enjoy their homes and their yards.
Look like they're, it's got a low, like.
Sorry, Nancy, please continue.
That's okay. That's basically, I don't want to be redundant and pile on to what other people have said, although no one has said anything I disagree with in this meeting. I do believe there has to be, I mean, this whole town was a farming community. There's plenty of open land. There has to be an option, even if it's not as efficient and ideal for Alliant as they would like. It has to be considered to put this somewhere that isn't literally on top of somebody's house.
All right. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Next, we have Stuart Keith. Same location. Stuart, please.
Yep. Yeah, well, I understand for Alliant, it is definitely a convenient location to build a proposed substation from its proximity to the ATC lines. But from the perspective, any other perspective, it's poor public stewardship to build a building that close to adjacent residential properties. As it's proposed, the substation fence line is within 70 feet of the property line and less than 85 feet from the resident owned by Kevin and Susan Gordon at 248 Bonnie Road, and it's approximately 160 feet from our residence at 252 Bonnie Road. There are clearly reasons why substations aren't built that close to residential neighborhoods. If we look at the examples of other substations, they're provided and built in areas where the aesthetics aren't as big of an issue. If it is built on this particular location, it clearly has to have a solid barrier, and the power lines need to be underground. The concern that was voiced earlier regarding potential health risks, while the publication, from Alliant, downplays those potential health risks, the Public Service Commission, in its publication titled Environmental Impacts of Substation, notes that EMF levels may not return to the same levels as the surrounding background until a distance of 100 to 200 feet from the fenced area is reached. As proposed, our residents, Kevin's residents, a number of residents are well within that area, so there will be increased EMF. I'm a cancer survivor as well, so I am very, very concerned about this. When we look at the noise levels, as Nancy, stated, once again, the literature here that we presented, kind of downplays it, almost makes it seem like the existing substation at Cobblestone levels really aren't aren't any greater than the one at the proposed where there isn't a substation. Once again, the Public Service Commission, in its publication titled Environmental Impacts of Substations, indicates the noise generated by an operating substation can be quite loud to adjacent property owners. A constant humming or buzzing may be audible. And that's just for several hundred feet from the substation. And since we have, and then it also goes on to say the sound may be noticeable during the nighttime hours when ambient noise levels are lower. We're talking about very, very significant levels, and because of the green space and the kettle and the bowl that's there, it will impact the folks that are on the other side. We hear everything that goes on in their backyards in the evening, and I'm sure they can hear everything that goes on in our backyards. That noise will be noticeable for a long, long way. When we look at aesthetics, noise, potential health issues related to placing a substation within 100 feet of residential neighborhood, it's going to negatively impact property values. I think it'd be very, very conservative to say that property values are going to be impacted by 5 to 15% when you look at an average house value in Cottage Grove of $315,000, which is probably on the low end for homes in this neighborhood. That would amount to $15,750 to $47,250 loss in property value. We understand our electrical needs are growing in the community, but I apologize for the dogs wrestling in the background. I understand your needs are growing, but a more suitable location needs to be evaluated. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thanks, Stuart. Next, we have Jennifer Devine at 322 Bonnie Road. Just commenting here again, proposed use of it will impact the character and the surroundings of the development. Overhead lines are inappropriate for the area, as the village has always worked towards none. There are plenty of other rural land for the setting. No amount of screening will disguise this, especially in the winter, even if it's 50 feet plus in height. So that was Jennifer. Next, we have Jill Paul, I think, at 208 Wheelbridge Road, just indicating the strongly opposed to building a substation in the middle of our neighborhood. Did not wish to speak as a village resident. So that's that. Next that came in, this was to the clerk. We are writing to express our concern of proposed Alliant Energy substation and ATC line. We have lived at 420 Clearbrook Terrace, Cottage Grove since 2002 and the village since 94. We picked this neighborhood because of the beauty of the trees in the area. Some of them provide a beautiful break from the business park. A large electrical substation so close to existing homes seems cruel to the nearby homeowners and downright dangerous. As a new retiree, I am worried the eyesore, the danger to my home value. Please consider placement of both lines and substation, hopefully closer to the business end of the parcel, running the lines in the rail corridor, perhaps. There are still undeveloped areas in the village. Can those be used? Then people have a choice to move to existing lines like those that are along Southern Grange, not after we have purchased, paid taxes on our homes for years. Thank you for your attention on this matter. And that is from Rick and Deb Moen. Next, we have Stanley and Becky Coatmans. They are at 424 Clearbrook Terrace and would like to speak. Is Stanley or Becca on? They were greatly opposed to the proposed substation or against it. Next is Eileen and David Thwing. Would like to speak. Eileen or David, are you on?
Yes, we're here.
Okay.
All right, so my name is David Twing. I live at 306 Bonnie Road. And I submitted, and I appreciate all the work the Plan Commission has put in this. I submitted a lot of material in writing, so I won't go into all of that there. But I want to thank you for letting us speak and for hearing us today. I want to thank particularly Alex and others who asked excellent questions at the August meeting, which I didn't know about any of this until a few weeks ago. But I thought that those questions were excellent and brought us to where we are today. So I just want to point out a couple of things. This is probably a village board issue, but we, along with other people we've spoken to, really questioned the zoning evaluation based on the descriptions of the various zones. I'm not going to get into that in detail right now, but we think that that's an important thing that will need to be looked at. And I think that combined with that, it's disingenuous to decouple ATC from Alliant, because you can't have the Alliant substation without the high voltage lines coming in overhead. So with the lines and the poles is where we start to question whether this is really planned industrial or not. My next point is just to point out in the materials ready for this meeting, I'm reading from Strand Associates, the alternatives submitted for possible transmission line routes from Bonnie Road substation to the main transmission line. Two alternatives route the transmission main along Clark Street, which has proposed improvements slated to occur in 2022 that encompass the entire right-of-way. These two alternatives may need to be reconsidered. So the two that put the poles and the lines the most out of the way are really probably not on the table, according to Strand, who does that work for the village. I want to point out that earlier we talked about the 69 kilovolt lines, but the description in August is that it'll be a line going out eventually and a line coming back on shared 2-circuit poles. So it will be 2 sets of 69 kilovolts on each of those poles. I want to point out that with the land north of the interstate, which I'm not well versed in, but there is land indicated when I Google Village of Cottage Grove, if that development is proposed at any point, then Gaston Road becomes more and more, it becomes closer to the middle of the city, and this becomes or the village rather, in this area where we are, becomes very much the southern border. And that's where I'm not sure I understand the donut hole as much as Cottage Grove Road north. And when you talk about Cottage Grove, and I appreciate, Greg, that you've done an excellent job of representing what you have to do on this project management. It's a complex job, and I really respect it. I find it interesting that Cottage Grove Road might be better because just to the east of where the line crosses near McDonald's is a sign for commercial development in between the school and the bank and going into the back. And there are existing poles running along Cottage Grove Road that could be perhaps paired with the regular distribution lines somehow, if they're not slated to come down, where our neighborhoods have them all underground. And then I just wanted to note that the idea that was brought up tonight was very interesting, that there are other village properties. The idea of going where the garage is might not be enough room, but the garage would allow the lines to stay pretty much out of view as opposed to underground, although underground seems the reasonable compromise. And then the last thing is the precedent in the pieces that I sent to the commission members, and I appreciate you taking time to look at all of that. There just isn't precedent in our area for adding a substation of this size abutting residential that we've been able to find. They are typically well out in rural areas when possible, and most of the in-town, in-city appear to precede the residents that were then added up to them. And that's that whole thing about choice. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, David. Next, Margaret Larson. Margaret is at 446 Ollie Street and indicates too close to home, is a village resident, did not wish to speak, and against the substation. Looks like I got Jill Paul, can't read the writing, at 208 Wheelbridge, strongly opposed to the building of a substation in the middle of a neighborhood. Did not wish to speak. We'll figure out the spelling of that and capture it for a public record. Next is Jody Hollick at 405 Clearbrook Terrace. Does wish to speak. Jody, are you on?
Yes, hi, John.
Hello.
So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate that. Everybody's done. All right, sorry about that. My main thing is just to repeat, maybe you have to go somewhere. Sorry. Repeat what everybody said, is essentially, I consider this a big health hazard, both physical as well as mental health. I think my home has just become, our community and our home has become an incredible place of peace and where I want to be. And I've greatly appreciated what, where I can just go out of my back door and relax. And I'm just very nervous about having the hum, about having the electro stuff and the whole eyesore. I think it not only would be detrimental for our homes here as well as the value. So I would just ask that you would really consider finding a way to make these go underground or a different location. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jody. Next, Cheryl Kruth at 451 Ollie Street. Just made a comment. There's more of a remote place to have the substation. People who have homes in this area and nearby should not have to have this in a residential area, and did not wish to speak. Next is Heather Peterson at 402 Bonnie Road. Against the substation, is a resident, obviously, and did not wish to speak. Next is Heather Beck, or Bike, at 500 Progress Drive. Heather, are you here? She did wish to speak. All right. Heather wrote that she would expressed her concern and opposition over the proposed electrical substation on Bonnie Road. The noise, the aesthetics, the health risk, and reduction of property values are the main concerns among many others. Please do not move forward with this project. The substation should be located away from family homes. Next is Chris Stoll, and I hope I'm not butchering your last name too, at 308 Stone Heath End. Chris, are you on? You wish to speak?
Yep. Stoa.
Stoa? All right, sorry.
Not a problem. I guess I wouldn't say I'm necessarily totally opposed to this, but I do have some concerns about it. The potential noise is a concern to me. I tried to go to the one on N to see how that sounded, but I guess I didn't pick very good times because the traffic was too busy for me to even hear anything. Concerned about the landscaping too. I would just like to, me and my wife would like to make sure that the tree barrier would be protected and not cut down at any time. And I guess one question I would have is there anything, I saw the updated landscaping and I think that looks nice, but I'm just worried what happens in 5-10 years if they decide to cut it all down, and do they have to put anything else in its place? I guess I would like to say that I do think that the commission asked some good questions at the August meeting, and I appreciate Alliant being willing to change their plans a little bit. I would like to see underground lines, preferably, if they're willing to think about changing that. And I had some other things, but I think that's all I can think of right now.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Next is Rochelle Donahue at 4661 Bonnie Road. Just indicated this project needs to be shoved down to allow a thoughtful consideration of the neighborhood questions, concerns, and suggestions to be taken into account. Rachel did not wish to speak, but is against the project. Next is David Burke at 500 Progress Drive. David wished to speak. David, are you on? David was also against the substation. Next is Jeff and Paula Stanmiller at 401 Clearbrook Terrace. And Jeff and Paula would like to speak. Are either of them on?
Yes, thank you, John.
All right.
And thank you to all the commissioners, staff, Alliant for compiling all this information, making changes since August. We were notified of this in August, as well as Kevin and Sue Gorton. And I believe that was staff directing Alliant to inform us. And I guess I'd just like to make a comment about transparency. Given the impact that this has on the neighborhood, I would ask that the village have a little bit more transparency when it comes to a project like this. I'm very thankful that many of my neighbors who I've never met have let their voices be heard, and I appreciate that very much. It was largely done by this neighborhood talking to each other, not because we were informed of the situation. Rick, I appreciate your legal expertise in telling us the concepts behind a permitted use. And, clearly it's in the zoning that public service and utilities are a permitted use. What's curious to me is the description of a planned industrial district is in direct contradiction to that. And I'll just read this quickly. The district is intended to permit both large and small scale industrial and office development at an intensity that's consistent with the overall desired suburban community character of the community. 50-foot towers doesn't strike me as being within that type of arrangement. It goes on to say that the primary distinguishing feature of the district is that it's geared to indoor industrial activities, not typically associated with high levels of noise, soot, odors, and other potential nuisances for adjoining properties. And in fact, it goes on to suggest a minimum disruption to residential development. So permit to me means you can, it doesn't mean you should. And certainly that's part of the role of the Plan Commission and the Village Board to determine the efficacy of this particular solution. But in my mind, there's a much more of a contradiction, and it's not so cut and dry that because we have these 4 words, public services and utilities, that that it's a slam dunk thing. In addition, I know in the initial approval or the recommended approval by staff, there were conditions that were set forth for the approval. Those conditions for approval were largely the same for this next one and for this meeting. And I found that a little bit puzzling because I know coming out of the August meeting, there was considerable discussion on the part of the commissioners regarding what the ATC solution was, what it was going to look like, what the routing is, information about the poles. We have maps with dots on them. We don't have the height of poles. We don't really understand that impact. John, you certainly brought up the interest in an underground solution. And I would just ask that if there is a forthcoming conditional approval, despite the fact that I do not approve of having the site there, let any conditional approval going forward be coupled directly with an ATC solution, because you can't consider one without the other. And just last but not least, I like to echo the comments of my neighbors. We all made largely probably the single largest investment in our lives when we bought our home. And there are some things with respect to market behavior that may impact the value of our home. But when you have something like that, that's built, it impacts things in a negative manner, and it's a concern of ours. And so I will turn it over to my wife, Paula. Thank you.
When we bought our home 20 years ago, we were looking at basic things that we felt we could be happy here. We looked at the quiet neighborhood. We looked at the fact that there were buried wires in our previous home in Madison. Every time the wind blew, the power would go out because there were wires. Squirrels were taken down. Buried wires were important to us. I'll just leave it at that. Living next door to the business park, we looked at what could go in, and we really liked the requirements that they had, that the businesses had to have a certain appearance. They couldn't just throw anything up. There had to be screening. It had to be attractive. It had to have landscaping that was well maintained. And we felt that that was important. And our neighbors and our businesses have really been good neighbors. We love our home. We love our neighbors. And we're nesters. This is our refuge. Putting the substation across the street from our backyard kind of takes that away from us. We are going to hear it. We are going to worry about the radiation. We're certainly going to worry about our home value. We're not going to enjoy the view. I like walking down the street and looking at the fireflies in the summer. I like leaving the door open and listening to the crickets. And I don't think I'm going to be able to do that with the substation there. You say that legally the substation can go there. Well, you might say that it can go there. I'm not entirely convinced that that's the appropriate use of the properties. That's not for me to decide. I'm against this project. I feel that a substation is more appropriate in a developing area where people can choose whether or not they want to be next to it, rather than to shoehorn it into a neighborhood that has been there for 25 years. I'm against the substation being built on Bonnie Road. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next, we have Emily Kirchen from 203 Donkel Court. Didn't wish to speak, but is against the Alliant Energy substation. Next is John Stoffler at 207 Donkel Court and is against the substation and would like to speak. John, are you on?
I am. Thank you. My name is John Scheffler. I reside at 207 Donkel Court. I'm a professional in the emergency management, disaster, and crisis response fields with more than a decade of experience. I ask the Commission to strongly consider the potential impacts to the health and safety of residents in several respects, including mental and physical health and economic security, as well as the risk to our local watershed, wellheads, wetlands, wildlife, and property values, not if, but when a PFAS is released from the proposed site. I'm particularly concerned if the Commission has adequately considered the potential impact to the village's wellhead and appropriately updated the wellhead protection plan in light of the proposed development and the potential risks associated with it. In a letter to state residents dated January 11th, 1993, the administrator for the Division of Environmental Equity with the Wisconsin DNR, Lyman Weibel, stated, "The most important elements of an effective groundwater protection program are those that aim to prevent potential sources of contamination from releasing toxic substances where they may degrade the groundwater quality. Once groundwater quality is diminished, it is extremely costly and exceedingly difficult to return it to its pristine, usable condition. This is why it is imperative to prevent any contamination from occurring in the first place. Source controls are an important first step in an effective groundwater protection program." In light of Mr. Weibel's statements, We only need to look back to 2019 when the MG&E substation on East Washington and Madison experienced a fire, which required the use of fire retardant foam containing PFAS, and ultimately led to confirmation that groundwater and surrounding watersheds had been contaminated with PFAS. Again, it is not a question of if the Bonnie Road substation would have a similar event, but when. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, exposure to PFAS have been shown to be associated with high cholesterol, increased liver enzymes, decreased vaccination response, thyroid disorders, pregnancy-induced hypertension and preeclampsia, and cancer in humans. Additionally, according to the EPA, conventional treatment at full-scale drinking water treatment facilities observed either no removal or inconsistent removal of PFAS. There are very limited ways in which to mitigate PFAS, none of which are economical at scale to treat municipal water supplies. This is concerning because even in the village's own stormwater quality plan updated from December 2019, conducted by MSA Professional Services, it was noted the study found that the village's stormwater management systems only met the requirement for total suspended substances and total phosphate for REACH 83, but fell short for both reduction requirements for REACH 66. Noting the village has struggled to contain the total suspended substances, PFAS, the village would struggle to contain the total, pardon me, PFAS are actually not solid. They would be absorbed in the water, so it'd be even harder to contain. It should be noted the proposed site is immediately adjacent to an outfall and a major outfall as well. When the chemicals make their way to retention ponds in the navigable waterway, primarily along Bonnie Road, Donkel Court, Vilas Road, and Southing Grange, the land will almost certainly and irrevocably be contaminated with chemicals known to cause cancer and birth defects. It is not unreasonable to assume that should an exposure occur, the property values of homes in those areas would drop dramatically. The village of Cottage Grove has a reputation of being fantastic for raising families with wonderful outdoor activity spaces, a top-notch school district, low crime, and an involved community. I respectfully ask the commission to strongly consider the potential of the chemical exposure, which will be inherently possible if the site were to be developed as proposed. It should be noted that an impermeable barrier is never truly impermeable in practice. Thank you.
All right, thanks, John. We have an email from Lee and Lori Bauman, again, expressing against the subdivision as well. Pat Winge, 327 Bonnie Road, again against, would not like, did not want to speak, and again against the substation. Jody Casnello, again I can't read the writing, I apologize, at 316 Tanglewood, against the substation. It would be detrimental to the neighborhood. Did not want to speak. Jim and Linda Williams at 408 Clearbrook Terrace, against the substation, and did not want to speak. Mike Taylor at 216 Vista Drive, and was against as well, would like to speak. Mike, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, please go ahead.
Thanks, John. So yeah, I'm Mike Taylor. My wife and I live here at 216 Vista Drive, and we're extremely opposed to this. Obviously, like everybody else. I don't want to sound redundant, so I'm not going to continue on with a lot of different things, but I don't know about anybody else, but after hearing a lot of these different intellectual things going against this project and hearing all of the emotional stands as well from the neighborhood, this speaks to the neighborhood, speaks to the people that we live here, how concerned they are. I'm terrified about the idea of this happening because, one, if it does happen, I'm not going to stay here. And that hurts me because I love my neighborhood. The reason why we actually came here, we actually went above our budget at the time to be here because of the neighbors we met, because of the area that we were looking at. Behind us is a conservancy. Beautiful walking areas, kids in the neighborhood, amazing, amazing place. And now with this consideration of this happening, if it gets through approval, we're going to have to definitely look into something else, because I don't think I could seriously stay in an area that has this kind of structure in my backyard, in my basically walking distance. All the health concerns, everything that everybody mentioned, that's terrifying to me. Just speaking on that, but I after hearing everything, I would be shocked that this project would be done through ethical basis. Like, how could you possibly do this in this spot, knowing the concerns of the neighborhood? I think you really, really, really need to really consider a different location. That's all I'll say. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Next is Brian Johnson at 421 Clearbrook Terrace, against, and did not wish to speak. Anthony J. Regala, 502 Progress, again against the proposed substation, and did not wish to speak. Next is Brandon and Deborah at 310 Bonnie Road. Pointed out several things on theirs, did not wish to speak, but indicated health problems, size in a small space of the substation, high voltage lines in a neighborhood where people walk. Why does that have to be in that part of town? Next is Michael Ladorios. Again, I'm sorry, I can't read the writing. Apologize. I'm sure I'm not getting the name right. Had an email to expressed against the substation that was sent into the clerk. And why not additional proposals of other locations? Next is Mark Fritzer at 430 Ollie Street. Again, against the substation, did not wish to speak. Marcus German at Germain at 449 Clearbrook Terrace, and again against the substation, did not wish to speak. We had a couple other emails sent into the clerk, one from Virginia Daughtry, again against the substation. Another one from Kim Miller, again against the substation with a number of questions. And another one from Michelle Schiffler, again against the substation. Did I miss anybody that wanted to speak on this particular substation proposed site plan?
Yeah, I was going to talk.
Oh, yes, Kevin, you did speak up earlier. Please go ahead.
I guess my name is Kevin Gordon. I live at 248 Bonnie Road with my wife and my daughter right now. My wife Susan, my daughter Jenny. I did have my son here, John. We raised our family here. We moved here in 1997. Built this home. I started building it with my own two hands in 1998. And at that time, this was the only lot left at the end of the block. I came in and cleared out a really nasty set of trees and then replanted a whole different set of trees to make a better looking tree line, because I was told that next to me would always be a quiet business park, as the others have spoken about, of indoor business, just as we have up there now. It wouldn't bother me at all if any other business came in like we have already, because I have no problem with that whatsoever. But as of right now, obviously I am going to be the most impacted with my wife and my family and my home and everything about this. I am so against, it's not even funny. I don't understand how they can just put something next to an established neighborhood that we have cleaned up and made look so beautiful with all the underground watering, which, as we paid taxes for this to happen, now our taxes go up on a pretty regular basis around here. And I just am not happy about all of a sudden, and the Reliant Energy Center, the way they're talking and how they can do it inside a building and do it underground and yada yada, maybe that's all fine and dandy. But you also, like the Twins said, they're gonna be bringing that ATC in right in behind them. And the village has already said there's nothing they can do about that because it's owned by Reliant and they would really have their hands tied. So my concerns with even thinking about that too is so many different impacts on my home. Besides the aesthetic value, I already get plenty of water runoff from this field next to me, which I've dealt with in the past, but we actually get quite a heavy lake behind us from the water that still comes off of that land, which is supposed to soak it all in, and it comes running down there after good dry times after the rains. So now I'm wondering with all that impacted earth, I don't care how much drainage or what they think they can put in. When it rains, it doesn't all fall in their drain tunnel. So I'll be getting more of an impacted water coming over that edge. And once again, having Reliant Energy up there, and if they left all the trees and they could do it inside a building, or if they moved up farther on the corner, you know, maybe a lot of us would let that and not worry. But it's coming in behind them with those 50-foot towers and all them wires. That's unacceptable. That's totally unacceptable. There is no, yeah, we'll let that happen. No, that is unacceptable. It's not, it can't happen. So I don't know if that means Alliant has to change where they want to put their thing, which isn't up to me, but they need to relocate that. And there is plenty of land outside of Cottage Grove. I don't care how much money they have to spend. That doesn't bother me one bit. They have plenty of money. So the money value doesn't bother me at all. I know things can happen if they want to do it. It was easier for them to do this, and like the Stoudemire stated, the transparency wasn't very well. I and the Stoudemires were the only ones told about this. Thank God everybody walks by my house, and I have a big mouth. There wasn't one person that didn't walk by when I didn't mention this to them. None of them knew nothing about it. So I just kept telling everybody I saw. So at this point in time, I'm 100% against this. I didn't build my home here knowing that they were going to be doing something like that next to me. So, you know, we're very close to our retirement time. This is an excellent backyard I have. We've all made our homes beautiful here. We have a wonderful greenway, and as my neighbors stated, the Keiths, that barrel behind us, I can hear the neighbors, but we don't care. They're laughing and having fun and swimming in the pool. It isn't a humming wire that's gonna just never shut off. Or the magnet, the magnetism and all that, we have to worry about that. I am right next to this thing. So in essence, if it shows up, we're leaving. I'll be putting my home for sale, and I know my home's value will go down greatly. But we've lived here for what, since 1997, or actually 95, we lived here. And then we built the home over here in 98, 99, we lived in this home. So I just don't want to keep going on and on, but no, we don't need this next to my house. It affects us the most, and it's going to affect other neighbors more than they really think. And those towers and those wires are going to be seen by half of this town when the leaves aren't on those trees. So it affects way more people than they really need. I guess that's all I need to say. I am adamantly against this. We just need to come up with a different plan, especially with the big wires. We need a different plan. And that's it for me, I guess. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Kevin. And again, thanks for all the residents who shared their thoughts on this. It is appreciated. And it certainly is. We've captured it too as well. Any comments from commission members at this point?
John, I'd like to, I guess, maybe ask something or say a few things, I guess.
Please.
For the Alliant or Alliant Energy or Wisconsin Power and Light applicant who's here this evening, Alliant Real Estate. I'm concerned because we really weren't presented with anything this evening, and the lack of detail in the presentation has me very concerned about this project. The lack of planning for the substation has me very concerned about this project as well. The village has a comp plan that has indicated what our growth is going to look like and where our areas are going to develop. And that you couldn't figure out where to put the substation before now is concerning. Mr. Thwing made a good point that this really isn't the middle of the village any longer, and we do have development going on in other parts of the community. So I don't think this is a good spot for a substation at all. And the health concerns of our residents is also a big issue for me. And there may be the literature saying that it doesn't cause cancer. And there's probably literature that does say it does. But the bigger concern in my mind is the mental health aspect of it. The constant humming is always there next to our residents. I mean, it's not an industrial park at that site. So I think that we need more information on this before we could go forward at all. I would like to have more information from our attorneys as to why this is considered appropriate in this spot, even though it's considered a public utility substation. How big it is, I don't know if that's really an appropriate space for it. So I'd like more information on that before I'll be ready to vote for this. So I guess they were comments, but if there is someone from Alliant Real Estate that can answer any of those concerns, I'd like to hear it too. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Melissa. Are there other comments, questions from other commission members?
John, if I could just say one quick thing, just to piggyback on Melissa's comments. Obviously, I'm just the attorney. I don't take a position on any of this. I'm just trying to advise the village. But regarding Melissa's comment about taking more time, I certainly think with the comments and questions that have been presented, your ordinance doesn't impose any strict timeline for this to get done per se. So the commission could table this again tonight if it saw fit, if it wants more information about certain project aspects that haven't been provided, or just more details about anything in particular. That would be appropriate for the planning commission to do.
All right, thanks, Rick. Other comments from commission members?
How about,
Go ahead.
How about asking Alliant to explore other sites and perhaps bring them in for our comments?
Okay, thank you, Don.
I'd like to make a comment, John.
Yes, please, Fred.
I want to go on record as being opposed to this, primarily for the risk to the community, public health. While there may not be conclusive research, scientific research that says it definitely causes cancer, there is research that indicates it at least increased the risk of cancer. So that concerns me. And the other thing is, and I don't know if this is even possible, but ATC is definitely part of this, and where those poles are going to go concerns me. And what also concerns me is, I was not at the August meeting, I don't believe. You had asked about them possibly being buried, and it appears as though we've gotten no feedback about the lines actually being buried. So I'm a hard no. So.
All right, thanks, Fred.
John, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Alex.
It's actually not about the project. I just really want to thank our neighbors and our community for coming out and providing comment. I think there's many meetings that we've, as trustees and as committee members, we've been to that no one shows up, and I appreciate everyone showing up. And John, please take notes as to who is here, so when you need help in committees, you have a strong list of 55 people in this meeting. So I just thank you to the community for coming out.
All right. Thanks, Alex.
John, I just wanted to step in and also kind of couple a few comments here with Melissa and Alex. I know how hard it is to have the community step up and voice their opinions and come to these meetings. And so I just wanted to thank them for that. And I think the underground point was missed from the previous meeting. So thanks for bringing that forward. I hope that the board is watching this or gets familiar with this prior to making their decision, because we have had times where the Plan Commission have voted to go one direction and the board has went another. So hopefully this gets passed along. I'm a previous elected official, and I've been on the Plan Commission for many years, and it's by far the most attended topic that I have seen. So I just wanted to get those points in. So thank you.
All right. Anything else from commission members? Since there has been an awful lot of questions this evening and information that really hasn't been addressed, as well as there were items from the prior meeting that weren't addressed, particularly the underground option or solution for these high power lines, or wherever this thing goes, if you want to propose it at that particular site or another one. That hasn't been addressed. The health concerns that were brought up again this evening are still in question, I think. The mental health was definitely in question. In addition to that, we also asked for a different kind of screening, something a little more, to me, any type of fence, corrugated fence or whatever is unacceptable in this area, or quite frankly, any area in the village. The investment needs to be there in the underground lines and appropriate barrier for this to deaden the noise. If trees lose leaves, trees die, whatever else. I think the commission needs to see that. Even so, and I'd also like to echo again, are there other options? You can clearly see that there isn't a growing opposition to this. And it's only going to grow from there, I believe. So with that, I will make a motion to table this consideration for this evening until we get those answers addressed. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion second. Any further discussion?
John, I'm not sure that tabling this will be kind of handling those concerns, and I kind of feel like it's kicking the can down the road. So I guess that's my opinion. I also have an issue with there really hasn't been any talks of like fire control. That was not brought up by anybody that I saw, and becomes a concern with all of those trees on that site backing up and surrounding those homes. So, I mean, I appreciate that there's a motion and a second to table, but I don't know if tabling is the right move. I guess I'd like to talk to other commission members on that.
Well, I'm happy to withdraw my motion at this point. I think, Rick, I can do that, can I? Or I can vote it down.
We have a motion and a second
Correct.
on the floor. Yeah, so then it would be
We have to vote it down, right?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
correct.
that's fine.
But hold on, Rick, we don't have to take action either. That in effect tables it till they bring it back.
Correct.
Okay.
If nothing happens, then there's no recommendation that's put forward to the board, so it just stays at the commission.
Okay.
Kyle's asking for something different though, I think. Greg?
I just wanted to find out if tabling was the play and to get more information, or if there was a different solution. I guess the question would be for the attorney that if it, in these types of situations, I've seen people withdraw their proposal. But I guess if it's on our recommendation to the board, if it's voted down on that site, is it always voted down on that site? Or is it just this site plan on that site proposal is being voted down? I want clarification.
So this is definitely not something like a conditional use permit where if it's denied, it can't come back. So if this particular site plan is denied, I would double check the ordinance, but I don't think that there's anything that would prohibit them from reapplying necessarily. So they could basically reapply and be on the next agenda.
And is it the case, Kyle mentioned too, just point of process, the planning commission denying the plan, it goes to the board as recommended denial from planning commission.
That's correct.
Let's move on. The tabling then tables it from going to the board for decision.
Correct.
If nothing, I think it could still go to the board for decision. I'm not sure that third option honestly sounds loose to me. So I don't know if I want to press that one. So, but by table,
well, we've done
does
that
not
in the
forward.
I mean, at some point, if we wait long enough, it's an effective denial. So there will have to be some action on this at some point. Tonight, given the circumstances with all the questions and issues that have been raised, I don't see anything wrong with tabling it to gather more information.
All right, so we have, go ahead, Don.
I think, John, you were pretty specific, but I think I think a good share of the planning commission members would like to see other sites identified. I think it's pretty clear that we do not want this particular site. And I think that was made clear by everybody, and I don't see it as the appropriate place for it, and it's not the intent of when the business park was developed, and I was on the planning commission at that time. So I think if we table it, that has to be part of the direction, as well as underground burial and screening and all that, but at another site and identify some potential sites.
All right.
I just have a question. How long, with all of the new apartments and businesses and stuff that are coming in, how long before we need another one? Like how much more power are we getting out of this, where we can double the size of our community, which we might be close to doing, before we need another substation somewhere? Like, does it make more sense to build a larger one somewhere else, knowing all the growth, or is this substation already taking into account the growth that's projected for the next 5 years?
I would defer that to Greg and Alliant. Greg, you might be on mute.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, too many mute buttons. We are taking this into account. So what we would end up doing at this point is it is a voltage conversion going from 12,500 volts to 25,000 volts and utilize the footprint that we have. Right now, we're not in a position to do that because we don't have any space anywhere. And we're preparing much of the underground that is going in is already at 25 kV, the cable itself. So really, it just becomes then the transformation throughout the whole system to be able to increase the voltage. And then that in effect doubles the capacity for the whole system. And the question was, how long did we know? We knew, I would say probably 2, 3, maybe 5 years ago, but we did not have a solution of location. We had to go through what's called an overall best planning solution with ATC, looking at the infrastructure that they would need along with our infrastructure, and then what ultimately really solved the future reliability problems. As I said, ideally we would move it further north. That would be a better solution, but um, this was the best we could do it from an overall site location.
Is that because
I
there
will
was no
address.
land?
I will say we could go outside of town. Um, as we look out there, then the solution becomes really at that point less effective, because then we still need something as we look more toward what today is the center of town, and it still did not overall fit the solutions for what we need. So in that case, if we went east or west of the center of town, well, then we kind of need one on the east and one on the west. So this was the best compromise between that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody abstain? Motion to table. We need more information, guys.
So can I ask specifically? I understand the solid barrier for the, I'll say the fence. I understand that. I understand additional sites that we've looked at.
This potential solution for burying the lines that was discussed at the last meeting and wasn't covered. I know that's not your piece of it, that's ATC, but from even what we've got from ATC, that's not even, there's very little information there other than dots on a page. Maybe you understand it better than certainly I do as a novice when it comes to that, but you know, again, you're going to put it in. I said it clearly at the August meeting. We're literally taking down poles. Why would we put more poles up in our village? I know it could be expensive, but that's, again, if you're choosing this site, that's what you're choosing. So that was another one. Another commission member asked for potential other sites. There was discussion earlier about maybe we can move it down down the way from where that, so it's not next to Kevin's home. And that's village property. I mean, that can be certainly a discussion with staff. Am I missing anything else, commissioners? Oh yes, the health concerns, not only, from the magnetic fields, but also the mental. There was several references to PSC documents that contradicted what we were provided. So I think that also needs to be addressed.
John,
The investment has to be significant here to keep the noise down and to keep the power lines underground. I think it's clear and simple. It's done in other communities. I don't see why this wasn't presented as a solution to our community. Yes, Alex.
yeah, the other thing is Melissa brings up a good point as far as that presentation. We've sat through many presentations with traffic studies on the Beltline, frankly, and there's charts with circle noses and arrows and paragraphs on the back. And so if this is a project that's been in those sort of the works for the past 3 years, understanding the different needs of the village, to your point of looking for more information, just doesn't feel like I understand the cause completely for this even. So that would sort of help me, back to Melissa's point. I think, eventually we go to the village board as well, and they need to understand the context of this project.
Yes, agreed. All right, anything else from commission members, or otherwise we'll move on?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is kind of, I'll couple that, John, that basically it's the site that is causing these issues or concerns, that it'd be more financially feasible at a different location.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Tom. Thanks again, everybody who shared their thoughts and their emails from the village. Moving on then to item 7, discuss and consider a request for site plan approval for jump around gymnastics and approximate 11,000 square feet gymnastics facility at 202 Limestone Pass, lot number 16 in the Commerce Park. I'm assuming somebody from Jumping Around is on the line.
Yeah, we're all on here. I'm on Joe Gallagher on behalf of Raymaker. I'm lead architect on the project. Rhonda Eggy is on as well. She's lead designer. I know Ben is on from Jump Around. And then Katie Halverson from our team is also on, who's leading civil on it, in case anyone has any questions. But for now, I'm just going to hand it over to Rhonda and let her explain the project, show some kind of give some background, show some imagery, and then, you know, allow your group to talk and tell us what you think.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Sounds good. Should I share my screen with the site plan and all the images?
That sounds fine, Rhonda. Thank you.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
We can.
Yes.
If you can increase the size a little bit, that would be even better, but we do see it.
About as good as it gets, I think.
Yep, thank you. That's much better.
Okay. I'll just walk through the plans that we submitted. I'll talk a little bit about each sheet and let me know if you'd like me to stop or interject. So this is our landscape plan. It's just representing the landscaping option that we chose to meet the requirements of the zoning. We've included 407 points that we believe are required. This sheet is our site plan, just showing the parking that we're proposing, 60 stalls total. You can also see here where we're proposing dumpster and mechanical equipment enclosure. I will note that the mechanical equipment location is to be determined, but we're showing our ideal location here. Here's the floor plan. You'll see the majority of the building is allocated to the gymnasium. You'll see different flooring types located for the different activities that will be happening. The rest of the space is allocated to restrooms, mechanical, storage, staff area, and then general circulation. Next, we move to our elevations. We noted the incorrect labeling of the elevations that you all mentioned. And we are showing here architectural metal vertical panels in the gray. We intend to have hidden fastenings as is required. We've accented the gray with orange panels. These are also metal textured hidden panels. The orange color is complementary of the Jump Around logo. And then to complement all that, we have glazing and a little bit of stone. Here's just some 3D images of those elevations to kind of give you a better picture. We've prepared a photometric of the site. I did note in the report by Strand that a maximum of 0.5 foot candles can be at the property line. We didn't take our photometric all the way to the property line, so I believe we just need to extend that to show that these slightly elevated levels do not reach the property line. Grading plan or the existing conditions and demolition plan from our civil department, just showing what's there now and then showing what's proposed there. So that's the end of our plan set. I guess I'll turn it to you to see if you have any questions for us.
Rhonda, do you have the rendered image that you did?
Oh yeah, thanks, John. There you go.
If you're aware, we went through this process with Dolphin Swim Academy, who's located on the site directly to the west of this. So obviously going through that process, it was nice to kind of learn the material requirements, from within the Commerce Park over there. And so obviously the building's different, the palette's different, but, things such as the hidden fasteners, just composition, we took a lot of that into account as we were putting this together.
All right. With that, then we could shift over to staff unless, Ben, you had anything else you wanted to add to either what Joe or Rhonda presented?
I don't have anything to add specific to the building and design, but this is a project I'm really excited about. I really appreciate all your guys' time and consideration. And I'm really looking forward to being a part of the fabric of the Cottage Grove community.
And before I forget, Ben, certainly we appreciate, as a village, you bringing this amenity to propose for the kids that maybe even some adults too who want to do some gymnastics. It's another nice service to add to the community, and we certainly appreciate that. And I want to make sure I said that before we jump over to Aaron with the staff report, and then Josh.
Yeah, thanks, John. As you said, this is really a great use for the village and for the park, and specifically for this location. As Joe mentioned, directly next door to Dolphin Swim Academy, and it sounds like Ben and Brittany know each other and are already kind of planning ways to work together, which is fantastic. There's actually two approvals that are on the agenda. The first is the site plan. The second is the conditional use permit. Again, much like Dolphin Swim Academy, this kind of indoor institutional type use is a conditional use in the planned industrial district. For the site plan, we'd recommend approval with a few conditions. One, just kind of the standard reminder that sign permits are a separate process. The second one, I had a few comments on the elevations, and maybe Joe and Rhonda can tell us a little bit more about how they arrange things, but it seemed to me at least more of the traffic would be coming from the west side, so I guess I would have expected more of the orange and more of the signage on that side as opposed to on the east side where it seems like less people would see it. And then just a few questions, like the windows aren't just a little bit off center on the front, and perhaps there could be ways to address those kinds of things. The third one, just a reminder that wherever the mechanical units end up, whether they're on the ground or roof, they will need to be screened per the covenants. We would like to see the sidewalk installed along Limestone Pass. We were talking about this as a staff the other day, and the village would plan to kind of finish off that sidewalk on that side of the street. Fifth condition, they already addressed the metal panels being concealed fastener type systems, which they indicated that they will be. We may want to consider a little bit taller landscaping in front of the gray panels. If they are the concealed fastener type, I might be a little less concerned about that, but this is sort of like Atlantis Valley Foods, where it was they were using an architectural metal panel, but it wasn't like a super high-end one, and we did ask for more landscaping there, so this could be kind of a similar situation to that, or they could consider maybe bringing more of the orange down lower towards the building. I think there's various ways to address that. And Josh, you want to go over the engineering conditions?
Yeah, some similar stuff. Not a whole lot of comments. As they progress in final plans with the site, we'd like to just see proposed grading plans and ADA kind of access and site elevations to show how the site's going to drain to that ditch to the east and how you're going to have access to the building. Just the utility plan on how sewer and water are going to come into the site, and then overall erosion control. When you build the site, that's going to be important for us to kind of watch and monitor that as far as the village as it's getting built. We talked about the public sidewalk along Limestone Pass and about how the rest of it will get sidewalks. So we're going to need it here. And electrical, you talked a little bit about lighting on the site, and we understood that you didn't quite take it to the property line. So just showing it to the property line to show that you fit under that requirement, I think would be fairly easy. It also appeared that maybe the lighting levels on the site might be a little higher than required. We had a few comments in our letter about, a couple different ways that you may be able to reduce the lighting level a little bit on this site, because it seems to be a little bit brighter than maybe normal, and you could get it a little lower in overall light pollution. So you can look at a few of those comments, and if you have questions on that moving forward, we can discuss those. They're not big items. And then stormwater management for the site, as the Plan Commission knows, in the Commerce Park Business Park there, that there's regional ponds, both for volume control for the storm events and for also TSS removal and phosphorus removal. So your other removals as part of stormwater. And then sites have to, do their own infiltration requirements. They have reached out to the DNR. They did soil borings on the site. The soil borings showed that the soil wasn't very conducive to infiltration, which we're finding on a lot of the sites out there. So the DNR did confirm that wasn't needed as part of this development. The only thing that we'll need to see is those regional facilities. So the big facilities that were designed out there were designed for a site of 85% impervious. So we would just like to see what is your site impervious level. If it's higher than 85% overall on your site, you will have to provide extra stormwater requirements. I don't know if that's the case. We didn't, get into those fine details. It would just be some information we'd like to see moving forward on the stormwater side.
Hi, this is Katie, Civil. The site is at 69.7% impervious. So, and that is found on the civil site plan, the C200.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we must have missed that. I appreciate that. So
no problem.
Then you fit under that requirement, which is great. The only caution would be the ditch to your east, and maybe we'll see this when we see a little bit more of your grading plan, but the ditch to the east that conveys all the water, you have some plantings and some trees along there to get all of your landscaping requirements. We just want to make sure that those trees and stuff don't get planted further down into the ditch and impede water. So they'd have to be on the upper portion of that, outside of that ditch. So, just a few details that we'll look at final plan development.
Quick question for you, Josh, if I can. I know you mentioned pending the grading plan, and we were holding off on the grading plan until after this planning commission meeting. Are those plantings allowed to be in the stormwater easement that is along there, as long as it's not impeding the majority of the flow in that ditch, or would they need to stay out of the easement completely?
I mean, personally, we would say we'd like to keep them out of the easement. If the easement's there and the ditch is already sized for all of this runoff on this site. So, if you have an easement, let's say in this case, and I don't know specifically if it's 30 feet wide, but the ditch itself is only 20 feet. I mean,
Yep.
I guess it's up to the commission, but that top 10 feet isn't really impeding, the carrying of that water. Now,
Yep.
it isn't an easement, which means someday that could be removed for whatever reason, maintenance within an easement, but we just don't want it in the waterway or the ditch portion that conveys the water.
Definitely.
So we didn't look real close. I'd like to see your grading plan to see how that ditch is, if you're going to alter that at all on that side, but we'd like to keep it out of that ditch.
Okay. Yep. We were planning on essentially leaving our limited disturbance right at the edge of the easement.
Okay.
So I'll work with Rhonda on the plantings and whatnot so that we can make sure that we're staying out of that ditch as needed.
Okay. Yeah, so overall, there really isn't a whole lot of concerns on the engineering side. I think minor final design details that should be able to be accomplished at the site.
All right, thanks, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Questions from commission members? Just a side note, this goes before the ARC committee tomorrow morning. So that group of folks might have some additional comments, but it also wraps in Josh and Aaron as well, and myself. If there are no questions, then this is a discuss and consider.
I'll move to approve the site plan for jump around gymnastics for approximately 11,000 square foot gymnastics facility at 202 Limestone Pass, Lot 16 of the Commerce Park.
I'll second that, Don.
All right, thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Don.
Did you want to amend that with staff conditions?
I was just going to say that, Kyle.
Yes, thank you so much. I do.
Okay.
Also, with consideration from the ARC committee as well.
Yes, that sounds exactly like what I want.
Okay. Don, are you okay with that too?
Yes, I was going to bring that up.
Okay. And hopefully Lisa captured all that so that it all gets sorted out. With that, then, any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right. And then we move on again related to jump around. I'll motion to open up a public hearing to allow public's opportunity to provide input on a request from Jump Around Gymnastics for the approval of a conditional use permit for an indoor instructional land use gymnastics facility at 202 Limestone Pass. With that, anybody from the public, please again, share your name, your address, and hold your comments no more than three minutes. And with that, anybody find their mute, and please feel free to jump in on conditional use permit. All right, if nobody from the public has any questions or concerns, we'll close the public hearing portion and move on to item 9, and that is to discuss and consider a request from Jump Around Gymnastics for approval of conditional use permit for an indoor instructional land use gymnastics facility at 202 Limestone Pass. Any comments, questions from commission members? And again, and staff recommend approval.
We had no additional conditions for the conditional use permit.
Thanks, Aaron.
I would make a motion to recommend approval of the request from Jump Around Gymnastics for approval of a conditional use permit for an indoor institutional land use gymnastics facility at 202 Limestone Pass.
All right, is there a set? Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Don. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All
Awesome.
right.
I think that was our last one. Yeah. Thank you so
Yes.
much for taking the time to let us chat today.
Sure.
We appreciate everything you do. The one before was very intriguing. So
Yeah, you get to see a good one. Thanks, Ben, Rhonda, and Kathleen and Joe for taking the time out tonight to show us your new facility there, hopefully.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move then on to, again, opening a public hearing, public's opportunity to provide input on a proposed an ordinance amendment to establish the deadlines for the appeals to the Board of Appeals. The ordinance was in our packet. Is there any questions or comments regarding that from the public? All right. I'll close the public hearing then. Move on to item 11 is discuss and consider the proposed ordinance amendment to establish a deadline for the appeals for the Board of Appeals. Commission members, any comments, questions on this proposed change?
So basically all we did was added a 30-day time limit to appeal, to go to the Board of Appeals, correct?
Yes, this is just something the attorneys noticed as they were going through the ordinance. The state statute doesn't really, just as a reasonable time, which doesn't really mean anything. And our ordinance just referenced that reasonable time in the state statute, and the attorneys felt that wasn't clear enough and recommended a deadline.
Okay.
Yeah, this basically just cleans things up, so we're not dealing with potentially appeals coming in after a substantial amount of time. So if we set our own deadline, it just makes things cleaner.
That said, I don't think we've actually had an appeal of this sort in the time I've been here, but we're just being.
That was kind of going to be my question. In that, is 30 days enough time? But if we haven't had any, then apparently it would be.
I would say 30 days is very standard. If you look at how, like, let's say you're challenging a local decision in circuit court, 30 days is like the standard amount in statutes for you to, file your lawsuit. So 30 days is the standard.
Okay.
Seems better to be more clear so that everybody understands what it means rather than being ambiguous. It's never good. All right, so this is go ahead, Don.
I was just going to make a motion.
Please do.
So I want to recommend approval for the proposed ordinance amendment to establish a deadline for appeals to the Board of Appeals.
Second.
All right. Thanks, Don. Thanks, Fred. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Item 12, future agenda items. Aaron?
I have one. How can we look at our business park or multiple business park zonings and make sure that we do not in the future place electrical substations or any other sort of facilities adjacent to residential properties. There has to be some wording. I see Rick's wheels are spinning.
There are multiple ways to do it. I think that'd be a great discussion topic for the Plan Commission to consider.
All right. Thanks, Don. Aaron, anything bubbling along that will be in front of this commission next time, other than the certainly the substation again?
Potentially, it just kind of depends on the timing of when people submit things.
Okay. All right. Very
John,
good.
I wanna talk to Plan about that attachment for leaf pickup for protection into our sewer.
Leaf pickup, that's probably goes either to probably Public Works is where it would start. So JJ's on, I'm on. We'll make sure we kick that into the agenda. Do you have a specific just leaf pickup? What's your agenda item?
No, I just know that it's been in and out of the budget for many years, and with the cost of sewer and water, and with us giving money towards TIF for sewer and water, that I just really feel like it needs to be looked at and analyzed and considered for protection into those investments.
Okay. I think we have a pretty good background on that, not only the equipment needed and staff, so we can initiate that discussion again. Thanks, Kyle.
Could that also be looked at the sustainability committee?
That would be in perhaps another area as well. Both committees can look at it, you know, as appropriate agenda items. Both will have different a different view for both Public Works certainly and sustainability. Both JJ and I sit in on both of those, so we can definitely pull those in.
That's very fortunate.
Yes,
I think it's a nice amenity that you can tell the public, and while kind of protecting the investments for what we spend on them. It is a pretty low maintenance, low cost item.
Yeah, there's other considerations too, water quality and some other things that that the regulations continue to get tighter and tighter, so that may actually force the village to do it at some point, or some sort of plan around getting the leaves out of the streets. All right.
John, I'd like to thank the neighbors that hung in there to the end of the meeting. So that's all.
I would agree. Now they saw a little different portion of the meeting of how it would go, but yes, I think that's very appropriate. With that, then, item 13.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Fred. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Choked Fred up, my gosh. Non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everybody have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks.